Hello, hello! For today's video, I decided I wanted to do the Colorblind Art Challenge, which, if you're unfamiliar, is basically a challenge where I make a piece without getting to see what colors I'm using. It's a bit of an older TikTok challenge now, but it recently found its way back onto my For You page, so I'm gonna try it. Okay, so first things first, I needed to come up with a concept to draw. And luckily, the time of the year gave me a bit of an out on that decision, because it's May, which means that it's Mermay. I've never really done anything special for Mermaid before, so I figured I would just take this opportunity to draw a mermaid for the challenge, and as a little homage to the month. Plus, I kind of got an idea as soon as I realized it was Mermaid, so it worked out really well. My idea was basically to make a jellyfish mermaid, so I came up with a loose pose and then started working in some details for the design. The hair was something I was really excited about though, because I was thinking about that jellyfish hairstyle that was going around like a year ago, and it fit perfectly with this idea. So I looked it up, and then it got even better, because I found that some people were like braiding their jellyfish cut to make it look like the tendrily bits of the jellyfish. I don't know what those are called. I'll figure it out later. But anyway, they looked like those, and I loved the idea of that. So I added 4 really long braids kind of flowing around my character. You'll also see that at first, I kind of made a questionable decision to give her a normal mermaid tail underneath her jellyfish cap. Hey, it's Editor Linz here. After I'd already recorded this, I looked more into jellyfish parts because I was very curious, and I've decided to make it all of your problem collectively. So I made this little jellyfish drawing to show you the 3 parts that I find the most important and that I reference incorrectly multiple times throughout this video. So this frilly bit in the middle is actually called the oral arm, and apparently they use that to grab food and like move it towards their mouth. So that's fun. And then these thin tendrily things are apparently tentacles, and this is the part that stings you, and apparently they do that with thousands of microscopic barbed stingers. So that's terrifyingly cool. And then, last but not least, the quote-unquote cap is actually called the bell, and it's quite literally just the body. So yeah, there you go, the jellyfish parts. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, so yeah, back to the video. I kind of made a questionable decision to give her a normal mermaid tail underneath her jellyfish cap, which made the whole thing just look wrong to me. The funny thing is, I couldn't even place it at first, like why it wasn't scratching my brain in the right way, or like what was wrong to me, but rest assured, I figured it out, and I replaced it with the frilly part of the jellyfish that I was referencing for this character, which, if you're curious, I was referencing the Pacific sea nettle. So yeah, I added that part, and it started looking a lot better and less messy. So I moved on to wrapping up her design and then coming up with a vague composition idea for the finished piece before I hopped in and did line art. But we'll just speed through that because it's not like what's important for this video, and then we'll kind of get into the actual grit of this challenge. Okay, the next step was to put my iPad into black and white mode and then get going. Before which I actually made this quick rainbow thing to color pick from. So I made this and limited myself to these colors only. The only exception being white, which you'll see I ended up using later for like a small part of the piece. Anyway, from there, I was fully into the challenge because it was time to pick colors. And I'll be totally honest, I don't know how to explain what I did here, because I basically just picked randomly based on the value and contrast of the colors. Like, I picked a lighter color for the skin and the frilly bits, and every other color from there was basically just based off of those 2 decisions. And some decisions were totally random. For instance, I added a gradient to her hair on a total whim, and I used the color from the frilly bit of my jellyfish girl because I was like, oh, it might look good up there. It might balance out the colors, make them look less weird when it gets revealed or something like that. And then I was like, oh, I could add more gradients. And I used white at the bottom of the tentacles. And then I realized that having white there and nowhere else would be weird. So I also changed the color of the chain string things on her shoulder so they were white too. Just because I wanted to balance it and because I thought it might look okay. And at that point I was done with the character, so I kind of brainstormed a bit of what to do with the background, and I decided it was most safe to use a single color, but then use like overlay and add layers to give it that subtle underwater vibe. And I added some shines coming through from the surface and stuff. And then I figured it would be fun to have my jellyfish glowing. And I picked some random colors from my rainbow palette and added them over the tendril area. But yeah, that's basically how I went about the base colors. I kind of just wung it and picked based on what I thought looked nice where. So it was fairly easy. Then I got to the shading and I was immediately so lost in what I should do. My first thought was that I could color pick the base colors that I'd already put down and then just use a multiply layer for shading. But that kind of felt like cheating, so I decided to drop that idea. But I really, really wanted this to look cohesive in the end. So I decided my best route from here was to use one color for shading on the entire piece in hopes that it kind of pulls everything together hue-wise. Because honestly, I really liked how the drawing was coming along, so I didn't want it to be one muddy mess in the end. And limiting myself to one color just felt like the best option. So I started color picking randomly from my rainbow palette and just drew a line over the top of my mermaid with all these different colors until I found one that I thought looked good. And picking it was really the hard part. So from here, it was basically smooth sailing. Me adding shadows based on the two light sources I'd established from her glowing tail and then the sun above the water surface. At this point, my main concern was really just whether or not the reveal was going to be terrible or not. Because genuinely, I was so nervous the whole time I was drawing, just trying to imagine what colors could possibly be where. But it honestly couldn't have prepared me for what was to come. I was so wrong in my guesses. Like, I got close on the shirt and the cap part of the jellyfish, but honestly, that was as far as it went. I was totally wrong in every other regard. So anyway, I'm actually going to hop into that reveal because I feel like that's the most exciting part of this video, and that's what you guys are probably waiting for anyway. But first, I do want to talk a tiny bit about my black and white version, because honestly, I'm really happy with how it turned out. Like, the contrast between the character and the background could definitely be stronger. And I mean, I tried to fix that a tiny bit with the light beams coming through the water, but I definitely think the contrast could have been a little higher. But other than that, I really like how it looks in black and white, and it made me a little more nervous for the reveal because I was currently happy with the piece, which meant there was a high chance I would quickly become devastated once I revealed the colored version. So I nervously went into my settings and turned off black and white mode, and then I went back to Procreate, and this is what I saw. There she is, the grand reveal. Honestly, I do kind of like it. It's a little loud, and the bold colors compete a tiny bit with one another, but overall, I think it turned out pretty good. And honestly, I got so lucky with the shading. Like, I probably swatched about 10 colors before picking one, and somehow I landed on green, which in most cases I wouldn't consider shading with saturated green to be a good thing. But in this piece specifically, it really worked. Literally just because she has lime green hair. The hair probably would have stood out, but shading with green ended up pulling that bright color into the rest of the piece so well. And like, it even changed the color of the tail. Because I look at this and I see a green tail. But when I take the shading away, the tail is actually this warm yellowy cream color. But the green shading changes that hue to match the hair in just such a fun way. And honestly, I do think that shading in one color was the play as well, because looking at the not shaded version, you can really see how the colors are competing with one another. Like, we've got the lime green hair, a dark reddish pinkish shirt, a dark purple jellyfish cap thing, a fairly saturated pink skin, a creamy yellow tendril tail thing, and a magenta-y warm purplish background. Like, I'll admit, the colors don't look too terrible together, which is probably because we got a couple complementary duos in there, but it's not great either. I feel like the shading just really pulled this together. Mostly because, as I said, we got lucky with that green. Because genuinely, I don't think this would have worked or looked even kind of decent if we ended up shading with any kind of blue or even a brown or an orange. The green just really makes this look right. So I'm glad to say I got really, really lucky. But I'll be the first to admit, green is probably the last color I expected to see when I turned the color back on. Especially looking at my rainbow palette, like, I have no idea how I managed to pick green not once, but twice. But honestly, it ended up being a pretty pleasant surprise. Because like I said multiple times now, I got so lucky with the green, and it looks really cool. Like, it adds a pretty fun effect where she looks almost radioactive, like between the glowing tail and the green. I just think it's a really cool touch. And it's also fun because I would not have thought to color it like this. So it's really interesting to see this kind of result, and this whole process was really cool and really fun. So I highly recommend anyone watching this to give it a go, because it's great. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say on the matter. I'm just glad that I got a result I'm mostly happy with. And I kind of want to do it again. I'm not really sure if that'll end up being a video that I'll do. That'll probably depend on whether or not you guys want another one like this, or if I end up having the motivation or energy for it. So yeah. Anyway, I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video here. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye, guys.